Alright, so last class we looked at our trig functions. What are our three trig functions? Sine, cosine, and tangent, and we remember them with the acronym what? SOHCAHTOA, where the O stands for opposite, H stands for hypotenuse, and the A stands for adjacent means what? Next to. Can your adjacent side or your opposite side ever be your hypotenuse? No, because you're always using what two angles? The acute angles. Very good. Alright. So, 1, 2, and 3 is kind of what we did last class. Okay, so our angle is x. Okay, 15 represents which side? Opposite. And 25 represents what? Hypotenuse. So which trig function should we be using? Sine. So you'll have sine of x equals, what would our ratio be? 15 over 25. Yep. Because it says just to write the ratio. Did you say units? Not for this one. Alright, number 2. 20 represents what side? Adjacent. 40 represents hypotenuse. And when I have adjacent and hypotenuse, which trig function am I using? Cosine. So I have the cosine of x equals what? 20 over 40. Which, if you want to simplify, you can, which is 1/2. Okay, number 3, 15 represents what? Opposite, and 12 represents adjacent. Opposite and adjacent sides give you what trig function? Tangent. So you have tangent of x equals what? 15 over 12. Alright, so what is something that you notice that is different about these three equations than last class? Your angle is x. In last class we looked at what being x or y? Your side. Okay, so we were solving for x or y, and it was usually the opposite or adjacent side or the hypotenuse. Okay, now x is your angle. Okay, when you are looking to solve for an angle, you have to use what we call inverse trig. Okay, so it's the inverse of sine, the inverse of cosine, the inverse of tangent. So real quick, let's fill in this little blank. Last class we were solving for the side, now we're solving for the angle. Okay, the good news is that your ratio does not change. So sine is still opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is still adjacent over hypotenuse. Tangent is still opposite over adjacent. The only thing that changes is what you're typing into the calculator. Okay, so rather than just using sine, cosine, and tangent, okay, now you're using those second feature to get to those blue terms above our just normal trig function buttons. So you're going to have sine inverse, cosine inverse, tangent inverse. What is important that you make sure of on your calculator? You are in degree mode, so double check, make sure it's still in degree mode before you continue. Okay, so before we were just plugging in, it would have been like sine of 20 degrees, and that's what we were putting in the calculator. Okay, now we have sine of x equals our ratio. And so this time we are using our inverse features. Okay, So, for number 1, these are the same 3 triangles as are up here, by the way. Okay, so I know that I have sine of x equals 15 over 25. Okay, all I have to do is now take the inverse. So I'm going to write sine inverse, which is just the exponent -1. And then I'm going to open up parentheses, and I'm going to put my ratio, which is 15 over 25 equals x. So you do sine inverse or cosine inverse or tangent inverse, whatever you have, and then your SOHCAHTOA ratio. So just like we had 15 over 25, this is the same problem as it is down here. 15 over 25 goes here, and that's how you solve for x.
Okay, so this is just what we were going to say. It's just a
All it is one more button on the calculator.
Okay.
Okay, so that one more button, instead of pressing sine first, you have to press second so that you can get the inverse sine. This is solving for the angle, yes. Okay, so second sine, and then you're typing in 15 divided by 25. And then you press enter. This number represents your angle. Okay, so if I told you to round to the nearest hundredths, what would your angle be? 87 what?
0. Units.
Not units, what? Degrees, because we are solving for the angle. Sorry. Degrees, because you are solving for the angle. So try doing 2 and 3 on your own. Okay, so you have the cosine and the tangent, and you're doing the inverse. And do these same 3 steps. Write your original trig function, write it set equal to x, and then your answer. So again, your ratios stay the same. You don't flip the fraction, none of that. SOHCAHTOA stays the same. Yeah, we're doing it in hundredths for now. Jordan, what'd you get for number 2?
X equals 60.
Very good. 60 what? Degrees. Lauren, what'd you get for 3? 51.34 degrees. Do we agree with both of them? Awesome. So that is it. That is inverse trig. Okay, so those are our 3 functions. Before we move on though, I want you to try these 3 problems in here on your own. Okay, so this right here should be words like opposite over adjacent, opposite over hypotenuse, whatever. Okay, so that's what goes on top and on top and below the fraction bar, the words, and then you're actually solving it down here in this space. Okay.
Sorry, the words. Okay.
So you're doing these 3 problems on your own to see if we can do it, again, on our own. You're referencing angle A in every problem, and you are rounding to the nearest tenth of a degree.
where is this angle that we're trying to find? So we always start with the angle that we're trying to find.
When you say start, I'm not sure what you mean.
Like, use that to see the opposite.
Correct. That's the one that you're going to put your little arc around that you're using. Here, with somebody else.
Yeah. Asian.
Asian, really?
Oh, I have one too.
Wait, was it with me?
Yeah. Then we were going to house.
Where?
We were like about to go to shopping.
Wait, were you there too?
I think I was walking to the bus. Yeah.
Well, yeah, 'cause I was like, Asian!
And then I dropped the ball. And I forgot my headphone.
Yeah.
I don't know what he said, like, monkey. No.
It's such an interesting story.
Thanks.
Welcome to our life. Okay.
Wait, whoa.
Alright.
It's not working. It says error.
Yeah.
What?
Everyone agrees.
Then you're putting in the wrong numbers.
What? Oh.
If you're getting error, you've done it wrong.
Ooh.
Make sure you're using the correct adjacent, hypotenuse, and opposite.
Wow. Ooh, Maddie, that's rough.
Dude, he's like telling me.
Dusty, are you being nice?
No,
What? I never said anything.
He's telling me I'm stupid.
I just counted.
He's like, yeah, you're getting it wrong.
No, I never said anything.
Okay.
Alright, 20 seconds.
How do you know? I work out. I was straight and empty.
This is cheating. Oh, okay, yes.
You're not arguing.
Is it me?
Yeah. He like said it with his accent and like your full name, so I was like, oh yeah, okay. But that's all. So you didn't really miss anything.
Good.
But you will have to come take your skills check. Good luck.
Thanks.
Alright, Bethany, walk me through the inverse sine one, so the left one.
So inverse sine would be 16 over k.
Okay, hold on. What goes here?
Oh, opposite over hypotenuse.
Opposite over hypotenuse. Okay, so you had the sine of A equals what? 15 over 17. When you solve for A, you had the inverse sine. Okay, when you put that in your calculator, what did you get for the measure of angle A? 61 point what? 0.9. Do we agree with her?
Oh, are we not going to the hundredth?
Says to the nearest 10.
Oh,
Okay, Maddie, cosine.
oh, me?
Yeah.
Okay.
What goes up here?
Opposite. I mean, just kidding. Adjacent.
Adjacent over
Hypotenuse.
hypotenuse. Bye, Bella.
Bye.
Okay, so
Bye,
you
Bella.
had the cosine of A equals what?
12 over 13.
12 over 13, then what?
Then you do the inverse.
Inverse. So cos inverse.
Yeah, and then
And what did you get?
22.5.
22.6 degrees. Do we agree with her?
Yeah.
Awesome. Last one, Maddie Hat.
I got opposite over adjacent.
Opposite over adjacent.
And
Tangent of A is equal to what?
tangent of A is equal to 36.9 degrees.
Not that yet. Follow
12
these
over
steps.
12 over 16.
12 over 16.
Yeah.
So now I have inverse tangent.
12 over 16 is equal to X.
And the measure of angle A is what?
36.9 degrees.
36.9. Do we agree?
Yeah.
Awesome. Alright. That's as hard as it gets for now.
For now.
Any questions over the notes? So that'll conclude the notes part.